Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining this live stream reading session, and thank you for those of you who are watching this recording later on. So this is the third part. We are reading from the book The Seventh Gosvāmī. So that speaks of the life of the great Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It was compiled by Rupa Vilas Das in, I believe, 1989. Yes, 1989 it was first print in this way. So we have decided to read this book. We wanted to read it for many years, and we thought, why not simply live stream it so that other devotees also can benefit from this. So this is the third session. So far we have read the early childhood of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as well as his early education, his married life, his college life, and his different struggle. So I'll try to, we'll go with the Mangalacharana prayer first, then by memory I'll try to speak a little bit of what we read in the previous two sessions, and we shall begin from the Thakura in Puri, which is where we stopped last night. So without further ado, we shall try to invoke auspiciousness for this reading session. So thank you for joining. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyananjala Shilakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Taismai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrachatam Sahagana Raghunantam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanam Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shivishakam Vitamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhischa Kripasindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschachadishatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavranda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you all for joining this session. So a very beautiful book of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We thank very much the devotees who have put that together. It's been very enlivening, and it increases our devotion for the acharyas to see what they've done for us. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur coming from a very great family lineage, very big personalities in his family, and the fight that he had to put in order to establish pure Vaishnavism in India, in Bengal especially. So a fight amidst Sahajiyas, amidst a branch of the Hindus that wanted to incorporate the teachings of the West, like Christianity and Quran, like that, and that stressed on the impersonalism aspect of the absolute truth, and that degraded the understanding of Sri Krishna as depicted in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So among all this, and the caste Brahmins, caste Goswamis, Nityananda Vamsa, and so on, so much struggle that Bhaktivinoda Thakur went through. He was born in 1803. Sorry. He was marched into Delhi in 1803. Yes. So he was born in the early 1800s, and in a very aristocratic family. from both sides, his mother's side and father's sides, like that. He attended some schooling done by his in his maternal grandfather's puja building. That was his first schooling. There was some tough times there. The teacher was not very favorable, and he made his education in different places. He got married very early. He got married at the age, I believe, 14. His wife was only 5 years old at the time. By the time he was 8 years old, he had already lost his 4 other brothers. He was the only boy left from his parents. And then when he was 11 years old, he lost his father also. So it was only his mother, himself, and his sister. And later on, his sister died too. So it was only his mother and his first wife. His first wife bore a child, a little boy. Amongst all this, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to help settle the debts that his maternal grandfather had fallen into. Although he was very opulent, there was descriptions of the festivals that his maternal grandfather was organizing, with scene of the Bhagavatam, literally elephants and gods and beautiful women dressed in saris and golden ornaments, and Durga Puja and all of that, and all the festivities, throwing of dice everywhere. So it was very pompous festivities all over his childhood. But then his maternal grandfather lost all of that, and he had to go and settle those debts. Later on, he even lost his first wife. His first wife died, and he had a son. So he got remarried very soon after, due to his mother not being really able to take care of his son while he was looking for work. He was struggling to find a steady place to earn some income. So he started as a teacher, like that. Then his paternal great father, who was a great Vaishnava who could predict the future, told him that soon, you have to come and see me, otherwise you won't be able to see me again. And when he saw him, he saw that he was very healthy. So he was thinking, how come he's saying that he's going to die soon? It's because actually he could see into the future, even though he was still healthy. And it did happen. And the last thing he said before leaving his body, while he was chanting the holy name, he told Kedaranath, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that you are going to be a great Vaishnava, and you're going to get a very great promotion, a very great position in society by the age of 27. And this came to pass. 27 means 1860. Kedaranath was 22 years old. So by 1865, he started to get into the law, studying to become attorney or a great, a judge, like that. So he had many offers given to him. That was after he went to Orissa. Then he started to work as a deputy magistrate in this way, and he got 2 daughters from his second wife. But I believe one of his daughter died also, left her body. So, and later on he got a son. So, and then he started to preach. So in I believe it was in 1868 that he finally got his hands on the Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, I believe he already had. So he wanted to have the Chaitanya Charitamrita in 1860, but the manuscripts were very hard to find. So in 68, finally he got his hands on one Chaitanya Charitamrita, and this is when his devotion to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revived. Revived meaning that he's a Nityasiddha. He always is an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but through these pastimes arranged by the Lord, it is sometimes covered. So like that. So this is it. And there was also there was this pastime of, there was a village where there was a Brahmadaitya ghost that was living in a banyan tree, and people were very scared of that ghost, and that ghost would control the mind of the judge of the area, so that the judge would protect the dacoits and the thieves who were worshipping that ghost, So Bhaktivinoda Thakur hired a Brahmana, not hired, but instructed the Brahmana to recite Srimad Bhagavatam under that tree. And it took, I believe, about a month or so. The Bhagavatam recital was finished, and then that tree collapsed, and the ghost left, like that. So now we are at this chapter called the Thakura and Puri. So I'm going to be sharing here in this way. We're trying to wait a second. This is not changing. Okay. This makes it smaller, this makes it bigger. No, I think it's about the same thing. Okay, anyway. So let me know if this is comfortable to the eyes, if you can read. We begin. The Thakura in Puri. The Thakura's family was in Ranaghat, and in his absence a son named Radhika Prasad was born. So I believe that's his fourth child, or maybe fifth. While in Dinajpur, he had taken a law examination but had not passed it. In Champaran, however, he studied law very intently, and after taking the examination in Chapra, he asked for a transfer to Puri. He received it, and taking copies of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita with him, he duly proceeded there. He describes his going there for darshan of Lord Jagannath thus: "Every day I went to see Jagannath at Sri Mandir. At the time of darshana, I remembered the emotions of Sri Mahaprabhu, and I felt very blissful. For a few months, he was alone in Puri, and then, after the puja season, he brought his family to a brick house he rented there. While staying alone in Puri in 1871, so 1871 means now the Thakura is, 60 was 22, I think. So 32, he's about 33 years old, 32, 33. The Thakura composed a poem in contemplation of the Samadhi, the tomb of Srila Haridas Thakur, the great professor of the holy name, the 9th verse of which is especially well known and is often quoted by Gaudiya Vaishnavas. O Haridas Samadhi, a Saragrahi Vaishnava. O born of Muslim parents, Haridas, and trained in youth in Muslim creed, thy noble heart to Vaishnava truth did pass, thy holy acts thy candor plead. Is there a soul that cannot learn from thee, that man must give up sect for God, that thoughts of race and sect can near agree with what they call religion broad? Thy love of God and brother's soul alone, bereft thyself of early friends, thy softer feelings oft to kindness prone, led on thyself for higher ends. I weep to read that Qazis and their men often persecuted thee, alas, but thou didst nobly pray for the wicked then, for thou wert Vaishnava Haridas. And God is boundless grace to thee, O man, united thee to one who came to save the fallen souls from evil's plan of taking human souls to shame. And he it was who led you all that came for life eternal, holy, pure, and gave you rest in heaven's enduring name and sacred blessings ever sure. Thy body rests upon the sacred sands of Svargadvar near the sea. Oh, hundreds come to thee from distant lands to enjoy a holy thrilling glee. The waters roar and storming winds assail thy ears in vain, ah, Vaishnava soul. The charms of Vrindavan thy heart regale, unknown the wheel of time doth roll. He reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still and sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread a holy name, a holy life around. Now let the candid man that seeks to live follow thy way on shores of time. Then posterity sure to him will give, like one song in simple rhyme. So we can see that he was a very great poet, and this verse here is very famous. I personally did not know that it was part of this offering to Srila Haridas Thakur. So it is very nice to see that where this comes from. So this is a great verse, especially for us who are followers of Srila Prabhupada. We can take refuge in this verse knowing that he is still here. It is clear from this wonderful poem that the inspiration that Thakura derived from his arrival in Puri was tremendous, and that his heart was flooded with deep spiritual sentiments as he visited the sites of the sublime pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and his eternal associates like Srila Haridas Thakur. Meanwhile, Mr. Metcalf was so attached to the Thakura's coming to a place called Matihari, where some of the Thakura's household items were stored. That place being his first planned residence before he got the opportunity of being posted in Puri. That he would not initially release the Thakura's servant who had come to fetch his effects. Yeah, so this, actually he was working with Mr. Metcalf before, and Mr. Metcalf really appreciated his work. And he was against actually him going to Puri. Not in a evil way, just being very attached to his skills. So that he would not initially release the Thakura's servant who had come to fetch his effects. Finally, a disappointed Mr. Metcalf relented and let the servant go. We get some idea from this incident just how attractive the character of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, that whole towns would lament at his departure, and that officers of the British government were beginning to fight over him. Yeah. This is the attractive character of great devotees, that they become dear to everyone, to the gentle and ruffians alike. Of course, the Thakura was an emblem of morality and was very expert in the execution of his duties as well. And for this reason also he was much in demand and completely trusted by the government's officers. This is a fact that, even amongst common people, the English officers often used to hire trustworthy Indians, and especially the Muslims. Muslims would hire Hindus, over Muslims. They thought that, and we can see that with Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī who were serving. So Muslims, kings, were trusting more the Hindus than their own. The Thakura appears to have generally enjoyed very convivial relations with the British government officials, although this sort of relationship was not universally enjoyed by educated Indians. There were frequent incidents of contemptuous behavior towards them, and Indians often experienced being treated as third-class citizens. When the Ill-Birth Bill was passed in 1883, and it was decreed that Indian magistrates should be allowed to try Europeans brought before them, the British community was incensed, and the bill was amended so that the jury would have to be all white. Sometimes racist remarks were passed off as jokes, as for example, a newspaper advertisement which read, "Wanted sweepers, punka, fan, coolies, and bhistis, water carriers, for the residents of Saidpur. None but educated Bengali babus who have passed the university entrance examination need apply. Ex-deputy magistrates Bengali preferred." Just to meaning that, all your so-called educated elite, even if they're Indians, they're only good for being servants of picking up trash and so on. However, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur never complained of any such treatment in his autobiography, and it seems clear that his overwhelming competence, intelligence, and purity generally defeated even the thought of such odious behavior. It is also clear that the British government, who were not unaware of the spiritual significance the Indians placed on Puri, appreciated the Thakura's ability to administer the law and to deal with the religious life of Puri on their behalf without aggravating the local people. From the beginning of the British presence in Orissa, they had taken great pains not to disturb the faithful, and the government thus issued the following orders to the British officers who took charge of the town in 1803. Okay, so this is an official order from the government to the British officers who took charge at Jagannath Puri. And this 1803, we can even see some early footage of the Ratha Yatra festival that was held under the British rule. And we can see how the police or the army officials were there making sure that everything went properly. Of course, they thought so, that they were the one who managed. On your arrival in Jagannath, you will employ every possible precaution to preserve the respect due to the pagoda and to the religious prejudices of the Brahmins and pilgrims. You will furnish the Brahmins with such guards as shall afford perfect security to their persons, rites, and ceremonials, and to the sanctity of the religious edifices. And you will strictly enjoin those who you command to observe your orders on this important subject with the utmost degree of accuracy and vigilance. You will assure the Brahmins at the pagoda of Jagannath that they will not be required to pay any other revenue or tribute to the British government than that which they have hitherto been in the habit of paying to the Maratha government, and that they will be protected in the exercise of their religious duties. So from this is a proof that amongst English rulers, there were two different types of people. There were people who were actually really trying to improve the position of India according to their understanding and had respect for the Indian culture, just like this gentleman who wrote that. And there were the very proud and arrogant Britishers who thought very ill of Indian culture and didn't hesitate to put down Indians' religion, sociology, and so on. The Thakura wrote another wonderful poem in 1871 entitled Saragrahi Vaishnava, which details the futility of attempts for sensory happiness, the eternality of the soul, and the worthy struggle of the soul to achieve pure devotion and transcend material existence. So you need to understand that from an external point of view, Bhaktivinoda Thakur became a Vaishnava only 3 years prior to that, in 1868, when he started to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, he's a Nitya Siddha, but you can see how fast the eternal Krishna Bhakti manifests in the heart of a pure devotee once he comes in touch with a pure devotee. Actually, he read the commentary of Sridhar Swami on the Bhagavatam, and this is really what strengthened his faith in Lord Krishna, because prior to that he still had doubts whether Krishna was morally correct or not. So when he read Sridhar Swami's commentary, then he became very fixed up. And he read that after having read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. After finishing the Chaitanya Charitamrita twice, he was still thinking that why is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glorifying the Madhurya Ras of Krishna? Because at that time there was a great deal of very offensive point of views on the Ras Leela, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself was influenced by that. It's only after reading Sridhar Swami's commentary on the Bhagavatam that he understood. So this is 3 years after having read the CC. Saragrahi Vaishnava. Alas, for those that spend their days in festive mirth and joy, the dazzling deadly liquid foams their heart for employ. The shining bottles charm their eyes and draw their hearts' embrace. The slaves of wine can never rise from what we call disgrace. Was man intended to be a brute in work and heart? Should man, the lord of all around, from common sense depart? Man's glory is in common sense, dictating us the grace that man is made to live and love, the beauteous heaven's embrace. The flesh is not our own, alas, the mortal frame a chain. The soul confined for former wrongs should try to rise again. Why then this childish play in that which cannot be our own, which falls within 100 years, as if a rose blown? Our life is but a rosy hue, to go long to naught. The soul alone will last for with good or evil fraught. How deep the thought of times to be, how grave the aspect looks, and wrapped in awe become, oh, I, when reading nature's books. Men's life to him a problem dark, a screen both left and right. No soul hath come to tell us what exists beyond our sight. But then a voice, how deep and soft, within ourselves is left. Man, man, thou art immortal soul, thy death can never melt. For thee thy sire on high has kept a store of bliss above. To end of time thou art, oh, his who wants but purest love. O love, thy power and spell benign, now melt my soul to God. How can my earthly words describe that feeling soft and broad? Enjoyment, sorrow, what but lots, to which the flesh is here? The soul that sleeps alone concludes, in them it hath a share. And then, my friends, no more enjoy, nor weep for all below. The woman, wine, and flesh of beasts no love on thee bestow. But thine to love thy brother man, and give thyself to God, and God doth know your wages fair. This fact is true and broad. Forget the past that sleeps, and near the future dream at all. But act in times that are with thee, and progress thee shall call. But tell me not in reasoning cold, the soul is made alone, but earth's mechanic, lifeless rules, and to destruction prone. My God, who gave us life and all, alone the soul can kill, or give it all the joys above, his promise to fulfill. So push on thy onward march, O soul, against an evil deed that stands with soldiers' hate and lust, a hero be indeed. Maintain thy post in spirit world as firmly as you can. Let never matter push thee down, O stand, heroic men. O Sharagrahi Vaishnava soul, thou art an angel fair. Lead, lead me on to Vrindavan, and spirit's power declare. There rests my soul from matter free, upon my lover's arms. Eternal peace and spirit's love are all my chanting charms. Wow, these poems are so beautiful. Of course, very deep and with such a high-class English that it's sometimes hard to understand. But we can just see of what aristocratic background and of course pure devotion that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was from. This great poem gives further indication of the Thakura's feelings of devotion being stirred by his having the opportunity to live in the Dham of the Lord. He produced an outpouring of intensely devotional writings in 1871, corresponding to his first year in Puri, which marks the dawning of a preaching spirit that is evidenced in an essay called To Love God, published in a journal of Taipur on August 25th, 1871. In this short essay, the Thakura analyzes the great commandment of Jesus and compares the precepts of Vaishnavism to it, revealing the further evolution of Christ's teaching promulgated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is an essay called, I'd like to take a note of this. These essays are very useful, of course, you know, the Acharya's blessings, but my point is that when we want to be discussing like interfaith dialogues and so on, to study like Tadvavid Das Brahmachari Prabhu, he made this series on an essay written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who had a discussion with Muslims, and that was so nice to see how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would carry out an interfaith dialogue. So these kind of essays are gold, for us to preach to different sects and beliefs. So he wrote that. So here's an excerpt of that essay. It was Christ Jesus who first said, "Love God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and love man as thy brother." This is an absolute truth indeed, but different men put different interpretations to this noble expression. The expressions of all great men are nice, but somewhat mysterious. When understood, they bring the truth nearest to the heart. Otherwise, they remain mere letters that kill. The reason of the mystery is that men, advanced in their inward approach to the deity, are in the habit of receiving revelations which are but mysteries to those behind them. The stages of progress are very much the same as the circles of spiritualism, which, though not true themselves, explain a great deal about the gradual development of the soul. We have understood some spiritualists to maintain that matter, when sublimated, converts itself to spirit. So this is the theory that life comes from matter. This theory is indeed against any inward conviction. Matter is matter and spirit is spirit. One of them cannot form the other. Spirit is certainly of a superior existence, though we cannot fully understand in our present state of material imprisonment. What relation spirit does exactly bear to matter, space and time. Metaphysics apart, we decide that the human soul rises higher and higher and can understand things of which we have no idea at present. Subject to this important rule, Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, received and uttered the words quoted above. This is a very good argument, that we accept that there's progress, we accept that there's different stages of consciousness, and as we can understand things that we did not understand before, were hidden to us, similarly many more things are hidden from us. So we should not think that we understand the teachings of the acharyas or the empowered personality like Lord Jesus Christ and promoted that, oh, Lord Jesus Christ said that, I understand it, you need to join my club to understand it, and so on. One has to realize that he has to raise himself to higher spiritual realms in order to understand such teachings. To readers who are a little above the scale of ordinary men, these expressions of Jesus teach that man should love God with all his heart, meaning the affections of the heart perceivable in all children as opposed to hate. It is said also that the acharyas are very childlike, The acharyas are like children in a sense. They have no false prestige. They are very innocent in one sense. With all his mind, meaning the intellect which knows as opposed to ignorance of good things. With all his soul, meaning that principle of the human constitution which worships the Almighty and feels its own immortality. And with all his strength, meaning all active work. So you see, even when it comes to the Guru of the West, Lord Jesus Christ, we need to understand him through Parampara system, our Param. It needs to be revealed from a pure devotee. To the inspired, however, more things and better and sublimer meaning appear beneath these holy words of the inspired Jesus. He teaches men to love God and not to know, infer, hate, or think of God. He tells us that man in his absolute state is not the intellect or the body, but is the pure soul itself. The essence of the soul is wisdom, and its action is love absolute. Satchidananda, right? The absolute condition of man is his absolute relation to the deity in pure love. Love then alone is the religion of the soul, and consequently of the whole man. The pupil asks here, what have I to do with the heart? My heart loves to see the sun, to smile, to eat the sweetest dish and see a dance. Jesus profoundly replies, yes, you must love God with all thy heart. Your heart now runs to other things than God, but you must, as you train a bad horse, make your feelings run to the loving God. This is one of the 4 principles of worship, or what they call in Vaishnava literature, Shantaras. Then the pupil says, my Lord, the intellect takes me elsewhere from God, i.e., it wants to make me to positivism. Please instruct me, what am I to do? Yes, replies Jesus, you must love God with all your mind, i.e., when you perceive, conceive, remember, imagine, and reason, you must not allow yourself to be a dry thinker, but must love. Love alone can soften the dryness of the intellect. You must develop the intellect on all good and holy things by means of love of truth, spiritual beauty, and harmony. So here he is saying basically to not simply use your intellect without love, which is keen to the Gyanis. The Gyanis, they want to get more and more knowledge about discrimination between matter and spirit, but their heart is very hard and is not softened by bhakti. This is the second phase of Vaishnava development, which passes by the name of Dasya Ras. The pupil then inquires whether the development of the affection and the intellect is quite enough for him. Then says the Lord, you must love God with thy soul also. You must perceive yourself in spiritual communication with the deity and receive holy revelations in your sublimest hours of worship. This is called the Sakya Ras of the Vaishnavas, the soul approaching the deity in holy and fearless service. The disciple apprehends that he will be lost in such a position and will be unable to act. Then the Savior tells him these words, you must love God with all thy strength, or will. You are wrong in concluding that you will lose your active existence. You will get it the more. So this is actually very, very deep, you know. And this idea that we're going to be losers when fully surrendering to God. If I fully love God and I only become immersed in His service, if I fully surrender to Krishna, then what will happen to my previous existence, my family, my children, whatever I used to do, if I'm always thinking of Krishna? So there's a fear there. There's a fear. And in the translation of the verse, Shraddha, Atav Shraddha, Tatav Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, it's there in the 410 purport of Bhagavad Gita. If you go at the end, Srila Prabhupada states, and when one is freed from the fear of spiritual existence. So we still have an impersonal conception of what spiritual life is. We think we're going to be losing a variety, you see. So here Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, don't worry about that. You proceed further with all thy might, all thy strength. In concluding that you will lose your active existence, you will get it the more. Work for God and work to God, proceeding from no interest views, but from a holy free will, which is alone the strength of man, and identifying itself with pure love, will fully engross your attention. This description is of bhakti in general. Then Jesus proceeds to tell us, you must love man as thy brother. From this is inferred the fourth phase of love, which is a feeling that all men are brothers and God is their common father. This is Vatsalya Ras in its first stage of development. Bhakti, love, is thus perceived in the very first development of the man in the shape of heart, then in the shape of mind, then in the shape of the soul, and lastly in the shape of will. These shapes do not destroy each other, but beautifully harmonize themselves into a pure construction of what we call the spiritual man, or the Ekanta of Vaishnava literature. But there is another sublimer truth behind the fact, which is revealed to a few that are prepared for it. So now he's coming to the Madhurya Ras. We mean the spiritual conversion of the soul into a woman. It is in that sublime and lofty state in which the soul can taste the sweets of an indissoluble marriage with God of love. The fifth or the highest stage of Vaishnava development is this, which we call Madhura Ras. And on this alone, the most beautiful portion of the Vaishnava literature so aptly expatiates. The 10th canto of Bhagavatam. This phase of human life, mysterious as it is not attainable by all, nay, we should say, by any but God's own. It is so very beyond the reach of common men that the rationalists and even the ordinary theists cannot understand it. Nay, they go so far as to sneer at it as something unnatural. O God, reveal thy most valuable truth to all, so that your own may not be numbered with the fanatics and the crazed, and that the whole of mankind may be admitted as your own. I just see Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying for the whole of mankind to enter into the rasa dance of the Lord. Because this is what he said, God's own are the only one that can understand this Madhura Ras. So the Thakura is promoting this love of God and as a paramount. The Thakura invokes this beautiful prayer to the Lord that he will reveal the topmost spiritual fortune to all of humanity, and that his devotees may not be misunderstood, but seen as dear more servitors. This prayer exemplifies the compassionate mood that characterized Jesus Christ's preaching, the same compassion that was exhibited by Haridas Thakur, even as he was beaten by the Mohammedans, and the same compassion that Prahlad Maharaj exhibited in praying for the deliverance of his murderous father and all conditioned souls. So you can see the difference between a pure devotee and a normal like Hindu or mundane man. The general Hindus of the days were very much against the Britishers and had, of course, a vision of duality. These are the Westerners, white people, we are Hindus like that, they should go away and so on. Well, you see how the Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur never wrote about how the Britishers were bad and this and that, but in fact was praying for them to understand the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And we see the same thing with his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who wanted to preach this message to the Western world. So very seldom, only these pure devotees have got this mercy of really preaching without any material considerations. Because of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's desire and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada's desire, now the whole world can know about Krishna consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prior to them, it was simply localized in some places in India, see? So that's the distinction. Everybody is always saying, you're my enemy, you're different from me. But these pure devotees, they are on another platform. Here we come to a very known pastime of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So, the chastisement of Bishakishan. The Thakur's whole family came to live in Puri. He mentions in his autobiography that his mother, his wife, Annada, Radhika, Sadhu, Kadu, and other relations were all staying there and getting the regular darshan of Lord Jagannath. So I think that Annada is his first son, Radhika is his daughter. As we had mentioned, he had lost one daughter. Then Sadhu and Kadu are his two younger sons. So he's got 3 sons and 1 daughter now. The commissioner, Mr. T.E. Ravenshaw, was much pleased to get a person of the caliber of the Thakura and asked him to watch over the affairs of the temple of Jagannath on behalf of the government. It was due to the exertion of the Thakura that many bad practices at the temple were curbed, and the offerings to the Lord were regulated to extreme punctuality. So we can see that he's the one who shaped up the whole schedule. Now we're used to hear 64 offerings on time and Jagannath Puri and all. It was not like that. It's Bhaktivinoda Thakur who has done that. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was much enlivened by being in Puri, where Lord Chaitanya had passed his last 18 years, and he took every opportunity to visit the sites of Lord Chaitanya's final pastimes and to experience the mood of ecstatic separation from Krishna, which was ever present there. In the first year of the Thakura's stay in Puri, his third son, Kamala Prasad, was born. At this time, the Thakura was given the task of quelling the disturbance caused by a mystic yogi who claimed to be an incarnation of Mahavishnu. A few details of this story are taken from the autobiography of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and all other details are culled from the biographical notes of Lalit Prasad Thakur, the seventh son of the Thakura, and other biographers. Okay, so Lalit Prasad, one of the sons of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also wrote a biography on his father. The story is so gripping that dramatic that one may wonder about its veracity. Yet we know that truth is both stranger and more profound than fiction, and confirmation of the events described below can be had from so many sources that they cannot be denied. The background of the yogi Bisaki Sen was that he belonged to a sect called Atibari Sampradaya, which was started by a person called Jagannath Das. In the beginning, Lord Chaitanya had ordered Jagannath Das to be a follower of Haridas Thakur, but later Jagannath Das gave up pure devotion and took shelter of Mayavad philosophy. So this line of Bisaki Sen was actually started by an associate or someone who was in the time of Lord Chaitanya who was supposed to surrender to Haridas Thakur but did not do so. Mahaprabhu rejected him, and for this reason he was called Atibari. The Atibari group was secretive in its practices and in Thakura states. This group has many forged books wherein it is written that Chaitanya will again appear. Among them there are some evil-minded people who attempt to imitate Chaitanya or Brahma, and some who imitate Baladev or Krishna. One person known as Bisaki Sen, a scoundrel who had developed a little yogic power, was thought to be Mahavishnu himself. The yogi established a temple in the jungle near the village of Sharadaipur, and as he exhibited many mystic potencies, numerous people came to serve him. It was predicted in the concocted scriptures of the Atibaris that there would be a battle on the 14th of Chaitra, March-April, and that Mahavishnu would then reveal his four-armed form. This news was spread in the villages, and the yogis sent out a circular announcing that Bhagavan Mahavishnu, who had descended as Bisaki Sen, would deliver India from the hands of the Europeans by killing them all. Well, you can see that they're very clever in their the way that they presented that, right? Many of the Indians were fed up with the British rule, and now you write a scripture and the poor innocent people of the village have no discrimination as to what scripture is bona fide and which is not. And then you start to distribute that, and Mahavishnu is going to come and he's going to kill, and you read this, you're a little village person, you're like, oh Jai, the Lord is coming to save us finally, right? And plus he had mystic power, so he could show some magic. He also began to exhibit various miracles to impress people. He would sit erect in front of a fire and lean into the flames for some time, and then return to an erect position without injury. He could read people's minds, instantly cure diseased persons, and manifest fire from his head. Wow, just see. To those who lack knowledge of the various yogic practices by which siddhis powers are acquired, these events seem extraordinary, even godly. However, to a serious student of the doctrines of yoga like the Thakura, such powers were simply an insignificant display of material power acquired by austerity with no real spirituality. Even nowadays, if some man would manifest such potency and let's say make videos on YouTube, you think the whole world would not start worshipping him? A big portion of the world would. Even to this day in India, unscrupulous persons who perform severe penances acquire these magical powers simply to get a large following and exploit their simple-minded followers for material advantages. Their naive followers often become convinced of the divinity of the rascals and worship them as God. Yet such persons are really no better than confidence men. In one of the world's oldest con games, tiny conditioned souls masquerade as God and convince other foolish conditioned souls to accept them as such. Two of the yogi's associates pose as the Guna avatars, Brahma and Shiva. Living in the jungle not far from Bhubaneswar, he established a temple, using funds that certain of the intimidated kings of Orissa had sent at his request. Some of the kings and villagers even sent women for his pleasure, when he announced that he would hold a rasa dance in which he would exhibit his sole supremacy and power over all women. Krishna only had to play the flute to invite the gopis to come. He has to send an invitation, come on, you send some women, otherwise I'll curse you, this and that. When he actually had sexual relations with the wives of leading citizens of an Orissa town called Brigapur, it created an outcry among the husbands and other leaders there, and they took their case to the government officials. Mr. Ravenshaw, the English District Commissioner, was at that time in charge of the Orissan division of the National British Indian government. After hearing from the leaders of Bringarpur, he decided to entrust the case to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur for a thorough investigation. So that's how it came to the notice of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because he started to have illicit sex with other men's wives. That Bisaki-san. The case was very sensitive. Bisaki-san had gathered a large following of sympathizers, and he was seen as a potential threat to the security of the region, possibly capable of fomenting a local revolution. The Thakura set out with the district superintendent, the chief of police, and a few constables. In the evening, just as sunset, the Thakura entered the jungle where the yogi was staying. Well, you see, this is like a movie, very, it's like he was very brave, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also. Near the village of Sharadaipur, he found many people sitting with the yogi. Many sick people had come to get cured by him and were glorifying him as an incarnation of God. Upon the arrival of the Thakura, the yogi rose from his throne and questioned him. "O Babu, I know that you are a Bengali and a magistrate. Why have you come here on this dark night?" Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur replied, "I have come to see you." Bisaki-san then rejoined, "That being the case, please sit down and hear my teachings. I am Mahavishnu, arising from the ocean of milk. I have come to this place, and very soon I will destroy all the Europeans, including the King of England. I have proclaimed this everywhere." In his autobiography, the Thakura says, "I went at night to that jungle and spoke at length with Mahavishnu." And he revealed his vow to destroy the English Raj. We can see that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a good sense of humor also. After saying this, Bisaki-san gave the Thakura a piece of palm leaf that had the very thing he had just said written on it in poetic form. Exhibiting his mystic powers, the yogi began to describe everything about Thakura Bhaktivinoda in detail, mentioning his name, mission, etc., and warned him not to try to interfere with him. He also revealed that he knew full well about the man that the Thakura had brought with him and were hiding among the trees. The Thakura was not impressed, and he asked the yogi, "If you are Mahavishnu, then why are you staying in the jungle and not at Puri, where Sri Jagannath Deva resides?" The yogi replied haughtily, "I am personally the Supreme Lord. There is no God at Puri. That so-called God, Jagannath, is merely a big slab of wood. Sri Chaitanya was my beloved devotee, and I will again make India the kingdom of the Hindus. For this reason, I am living in the jungle. I know that you are an excellent court judge and a good devotee as well. When the Hindu kingdom is again established, I will give you a very good position in the government. I will make you the governor of the entire state of Orissa. You can see that, materially speaking, was very imposing, making predictions and knowing Bhaktivinoda Thakur's name and so on. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, not impressed. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur then gravely replied, "The tiny living entity can never become God. Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Shishupal, Dantavakra, and many others who came under the influence of this arrogant mentality were all destroyed." Well, just see, he's in the dead of night in front of such a big materialist who could, kill normal people, probably with his curses or whatever. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is straight there and speaking to him, chastising him. The yogi, in order to impress the Thakura with his power, then called before him many people with incurable diseases, and in a moment made them well. One person was suffering with a spear wound. The yogi brought him under his control and produced some ashes which he smeared on the wound. Immediately the wounded man was well and free from pain. The Thakura was not moved, correctly seeing the yogi as an offender to the Lord, using God-given powers for his own self-aggrandizement. Leaving some spies to watch the yogi, the Thakura spent the night in a tent at Sharadaipur. The yogi had to be arrested, but first further investigation needed to be made. The next day, the Thakura traveled to the villages in the region to gather reports from the people. In some villages he heard praise, but others were angry about the yogi's affairs with married women, and were anxious that this fever of attraction to the yogi might spread to the women of their own villages and result in scandal and humiliation. You see, unless you see through the Acharya's teachings and the Shastra, you cannot recognize who is who. Because it's very understandable that these poor villagers were led into believing that he was an incarnation of God with all the mystic power that he had. But unless you see through Shastra, how you're not going to be misled? Thereafter, the Thakura gave the order to arrest the yogi, and seeing his men fearful, he personally led them, bringing with him 2 police inspectors, a police superintendent, and over 100 armed policemen. They arrived in the early morning hours. A sacrificial fire was burning in front of Pisaki-sen, and well over 1,000 followers were present. Many were offering prayers to the yogi. The Thakura and the policemen appeared on the perimeter of the crowd. When the yogi's followers saw the red-turbaned policemen armed with rifles and bayonets, many of them began to flee. News was quickly spread to the villages that the government had sent an army to arrest the avatar of God. Pisaki-sen sat observing all of this calmly. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur approached him. There was a short silence. "Babu, what is the meaning of all this?" asked the yogi with apparent serenity. "They have come to take you. It is the governor's order that you should be brought to Puri," replied the Thakura. The yogi replied harshly, "Who is this governor? I am king, for I am the supreme Godhead and master of all the universes. I bow down before no one. Let us see who is able to take me away from this place." "If you do not go peacefully, we will be obliged to take you away by force," replied the Thakura sternly. Becoming enraged, the yogi cried, "I order you to immediately leave this place. Let us see who has the power to take me." Saying this, the yogi shook his head violently, whereupon hundreds and hundreds of fiery flames, like burning snakes, began to fly out of his matted locks. The yogi's eyes then became bright red, and sparks of fire shot out of them. Seeing this, the police force was terrified and fell back a pace. Hey, this I never heard of that. That would be nice to put in a drama. "Pisaki-sen," declared the Thakura, "you may show us as much magic as you like, and we certainly will not forget it. However, you are an offender at the feet of the Supreme Lord. Although you are an insignificant living being, you are proclaiming yourself to be God, but actually you despise God. Furthermore, you are a rebel. You must go to Puri, where you will be judged." The yogi shouted, "I will not go. My power remains. Therefore, go away." Thakura Bhaktivinoda ordered 4 police constables to bring a bullock cart from the nearby village. As they waited for the cart, the Thakura preached to the irate yogi. You must give up your deluded mentality and admit your imperfection. Your mystic powers are very insignificant in comparison to the opulences of the Supreme Godhead and the greatness of the Lord's devotees. I request you to correctly understand this just for once. The yogi reacted like a trampled snake. You obviously do not know who I am. If I, just once, ignite the fire of my anger, the 3 worlds will burn into ashes. But because I'm very kind to the universe, I am not doing it. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur began to laugh. Acha, he said, let us now go to Puri. When we get there, you can display the fire of your anger. By this time, the bullock cart had arrived. Seeing no way out of his predicament, the yogi ascended the cart. But before doing so, he announced to the Thakura, it is the word of the devotee that the Supreme Lord protects. Therefore, I am only going to Puri to protect your word that you will bring me there. Very clever. Huh? Okay, alright, no other way. I'll make it my lila. On the way to Puri, the Thakura began writing up his judgment of the case to date. As the Thakura wrote, the yogi began exhibiting his mystic powers from the back of the cart. The Thakura noted them, but remained steadfast. Upon arriving in Puri, the yogi was placed in solitary confinement until the trial. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur put 36 Muslim constables and 72 Kutak policemen in charge of guarding his cell day and night. He then departed to arrest the false Brahman Shiva, who later pleaded that they had been coerced into their respective roles by Bisaki Sen. They were prosecuted by Mr. Taylor, who was the subdivision officer at Kodar. Wow, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is fearless, We preach to some atheists and we become like shaken and sometimes fearful. He preached to a guy whose hair is on fire and fire spits out of his eyes and all, and still unshaken. That can only be done by Mahabhagavad. Bisaki Sen fasted from both food and water and did not sleep at all. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur repeatedly requested him to eat and gave him many valuable spiritual instructions, but Bisaki Sen would not hear him. During the pre-trial period, many Odishan people took up a collection and hired a lawyer to defend Bisaki Sen in court. The trial lasted 18 days. It was held in the district court at Puri. Almost 1,000 of the yogi's followers and sympathizers gathered outside the courthouse during the trial, shouting their demands for the yogi's release. On the 5th day of the trial, court was adjourned for the day. At the completion of the 6 days' hearings, Bisaki Sen ominously threatened the Thakura. Babu, you must immediately desist from your persecuting me or everything you have will be destroyed. Go to your home now and see what disaster is taking place there. So he's fasting, that rascal, for the 6th day, no food, no water. And now he's starting to attack Bhaktivinoda Thakur's family. It took 18 days, and you can see that to take down a demon is not something lightweight, When he arrived at his home, he found his second daughter, 7-year-old Kadambini, afflicted with some deadly disease and high fever, repeatedly losing consciousness. Loud sounds of lamentation filled the house, but the Thakura did not fail in his determination, for he knew that the Lord would protect him from the insignificant powers of a yogi. Many doctors came to attend his daughter, and by 8 o'clock in the morning she was well and playing in the courtyard. The Thakura's wife, Srimati Bhagavat Devi, became very anxious for the safety of their children, and she pleaded with her husband to let Bisaki Sen go before he destroyed their whole family. Yes, let us all die, the Thakura replied, but this rascal must be punished. Wow. So you can see that the womanly nature is present even in the high circle of the pure devotee. There's no such thing as women being different from the highest heaven to, the woman nature is like that. She's just going to be thinking of the children. So this mentality of being self-centered on one's family cannot be eradicated in a woman's mind, it seems. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, let us all die. We don't care. But this rascal must be punished. Phew. If it was a modern day woman, you say that, I leave with the children. She would have left. But the chastity of women before in India was so strong that they would remain. The Thakura recalls the period in his autobiography. All over Puri there were disturbances. At that time, the Puri school had a fire, and all of the people suspected him. At the time, the Puri school, yeah. Also at this time, Kadur, a nickname for Kadambini, came down with fever. Bisaki-san, by his practice of yoga, had by some means attained yogic powers, and I obtained a lot of evidence against him. For 21 days he did not eat or drink even a drop of water, but he did not show any weakness and gave unfailing cures to many people. Very powerful. 21 days, no drinking, no food, nothing, and he doesn't seem to be affected. On the 17th day of the trial, when the court rose for recess, Bisaki-san stood up and screamed violently at the Thakur. Did you see what great calamity occurred at your house the other day? Still you're not coming to your senses? When will you be able to recognize me as the Supreme Lord? The final day of my judgment will be your death. What is the punishment for one who disrespects an avatar? How death sits on the seat of judgment and gives out his commands, I will see. When Thakur Bhaktivinoda returned home in the late afternoon of that day, he took off his coat clothes, and all of a sudden he felt a sharp pain on the right side of his chest. As the night went on, the pain increased. The Thakura was unshaken in his determination, but it was unclear how he would be able to enter the court in such a condition to give his final judgment. In the morning, the severe pain persisted. Finally, by about 10 a.m., he felt a slight subsiding of the pain. 10 a.m. Entire night until there, he felt such a extreme pain, and still, unshaken. Who said that devotional service is easy? Finally, by about 10 a.m., he felt a slight subsiding of the pain, and he was ready to write the judgment. He was unable to walk and had to be carried to his palanquin. On that final day, 1,000 of the yogi's followers again gathered in front of the courthouse and created a terrific din. Inside, the trial ensued. The Thakura's decision was announced. Bisaki-san is found guilty of political conspiracy against the national British Indian government as well as the state government of Orissa, and therefore is sentenced to 18 months of strict imprisonment and hard labor. When the huge crowd outside received the news of Bisaki-san's sentence, they made a tremendous uproar and began to cry in unison, "Injustice! Injustice!" 18 months only? And they're crying injustice? Bisaki-san was being led away from the court when suddenly the district medical officer, Dr. Walters, jumped on the rascal from behind and cut off his long hair with a large pair of scissors. The English officer had come to know from his studies of yoga that yogis often conserve their powers in their hair. As soon as the matted locks of Bisaki-san were cut, he fell to the floor devoid of all power and unable to walk. The pain in the body of the Thakura vanished, and the yogi was removed from the courtroom on a stretcher. When his followers saw that God had been overcome by having his hair removed, most of them deserted him. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur recalls in his biography, when his hair was cut, his followers said that he was a cheater and left him. Wow. So that Dr. Walters was also very courageous. He just jumped on him like that and cut off his hair, Now we know if there's a big rascal. I think we should go shave all these, what is his name? This Baba was very famous in India. Sadhguru, should shave his hair. Maybe he will stop bewildering all his followers. So, when his hair was cut, his followers said that he was a cheater and left him. The Thakura walked home peacefully. Bisaki-san was held in the Puri jail for 3 months and then transferred to the central jail in Medinipur. In 1873, while still in... So 1873 means Thakura was now 35 years old, 34, 35. In 1873, while still in prison, he took poison and died. So Mahavishnu committed suicide, it seems. After the rise of Bisaki-san, There were other so-called incarnations. In Yajpur, a Brahma took over Bisakya-sen's former group and was similarly punished. And in Kandargiri, a Balaram made his attempt but was also swiftly thwarted. Just as Durvasa Muni had attempted to punish the pure devotee Ambarish Maharaj but was himself punished, a similar attempt was made on Thakura Bhaktivinoda. But by the grace of the Lord, he was fully protected and victorious. The Thakura sent a letter to the editor of a Kutak newspaper called Progress after the trial of Bisakya-sen and described the evils of the Atibari sect as well as the rise of the other impostor incarnations. The article is so interesting and so devastating a critique that we reproduced it here in full as it appeared in the Harmonist in November of 1928. So, this is a letter written by Thakura, who had sent to the editor of the Kutak newspaper called Progress after the trial of Bisakya-sen, and he's going to be describing the evil deeds of his sect. And it was published later on in the Harmonist, November 1928. To the editor, Progress, August 18, 1871. Dear Sir, there is a class of men in Orissa who pass by the name of Attibaris. They say that they are Vaishnavas, but in fact they are quite opposed to the principles of Vaishnavism. This sect originated with one Jagannath Das, who flourished at the time when Mahaprabhu Chaitanya Dev of Nadia entered Puri with a view to propagate the genuine principles of the Vaishnava creed. Jagannath Das was indeed a man of great acquirements in the Sanskrit language. He translated the Srimad Bhagavata into Uriya poetry, as also the Bhagavad Gita, the most instructive book in the Hindu literature. So again, this Jagannath Das, I think, is the one who was instructed to become a disciple of Haridas Thakur, but who became later on a Mayavad, and from him this line of Atibaris, in which this Bisakya-sen belonged, emerged. The translations are, however, free and contain more things than the original works themselves. The Uriyas, the people of Orissa, especially those who are below the Brahmins, are very fond of reading these translations. As the citizens of Calcutta, you might have several times heard the Uriya bearers reading these translations in their Palki Addas in the city of palaces, Calcutta. Though the translation of the Bhagavad by Jagannath Das is generally liked by all classes of the Uriyas, yet there is a special class of men who consider themselves as spiritually led by him. These men are the Atibaris. Most of them belong to the lower classes. The Atibari is both a religionist and a politician, like the Mohammedan fanatics that go by the name of Wahhabis. In religion, they occupy a very curious position. They say that they worship one great God who is without any form whatever. They appear to have no conception about the spiritual personality of the deity, nor do they believe that the human soul lasts in distinction from God after salvation. In fact, they hold a similar idea with the great commentator of the Vedanta Darshana, Sankaracharya Ji, the leader of the Advaitavadis. But they at the same time believe that the Jagannath in the temple at Puri is the highest ideal of God. In fact, they worship the idol as if it were the unconditioned deity himself. They do not believe all the Shastras, but they attempt to choose principles out of them. They believe, however, that they are the highest class of religionists in the world, and the absolute truth is alone with them. They several times profess that they are true Brahmagyanis, and that the present Brahmas are but Christians, the name Brahma being a misnomer with them. The Atibaris, like the old Roman Catholics in the Middle Ages, still receive revelations from the deity and speak sometimes face to face with him. For this reason, every learned Atibari is a prophet, and has his malika or a series of revelations. So this is all their mental speculation that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is describing. Go to one of them and he will tell you in which year and under which circumstances the world will end. They sometimes perform some ceremonies of the yoga philosophy and attempt to work physical wonders. They are addicted to the smoking of ganja and taking of opium. And it is when they are under the influence of these intoxicating articles that they are in the habit of receiving revelations. It's a... Again, we can see the humor of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know. Most of them are married men living in their own houses and dislike the life of ascetics. They are often very bold and address other people in mysteriously awkward terms. In fact, those of the Udiyas who are intelligent enough to understand matters but have received no good education turn out Atibadis. In whole of Orissa, I believe there are about 15,000 men of this class. We understand it on very good authority that they have a sort of brotherhood like the Freemasons amongst themselves, which unites them in a strong affection towards each other. They often keep communication amongst themselves in mysterious expressions and signs, and thus the Atibadis at Balasore are often kept informed of what is going on with the Atibadis at Puri, which is about 8 days' journey from the former station. Just see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur was informed of Freemasonry going on at that time even. Freemasons, by the way, are the one behind pretty much everything that's going on in the world, or especially in America. We will have been led to compare this class of fanatics with Bauls of Bengal, had there not been another characteristic to distinguish them from the latter. I mean the political characteristics of the Atibadis. The main object of the class is to bring about some political revolution in the province by means of circulating false rumors in the shape of revelations. Their malikas, as the revelations are called by them, generally declare the period where there will be an incarnation of the deity to destroy the present ruling authority. By mysterious words, they advise their fellow brethren to be ready for the time and eagerly await for the avatar. So same thing that was promulgated before, and Bisaki came as Mahavishnu, and I will destroy the king of England, and so on. And he got his hair cut off and finished. These circulations are not solely to be attributed to the ganja to which they are addicted, but to a desire which they foster in them to enjoy money and women, belonging to the credulous fools that live far from the light of education. An Atibadi is looked upon in the interior as one saint of heaven to deliver the souls of sinners and to give them worldly aggrandizement when necessary. People sometimes visit them with a view to get rid of chronic diseases, and women generally solicit the favor of their giving them children and domestic comfort. The trials of a couple of cases in criminal courts at Puri and Kurda have brought to light a great deal about the doings of the Atibadi impostors in the Mufusil. The Kurda case has disclosed that one of them turned out to be an incarnation of Balaram and prophesied to the people that he had come to make a political revolution in Orissa, the chosen place of the deity. By this false rumor, he acquired a great reputation and corrupted a number of females belonging to the higher classes of the inhabitants. He was worshipped as a god and was surrounded by thousands as a Raja ruling his own realm. He continued to send out his malikas and to increase the number of fanatics till the deputy magistrate, Mr. Taylor, tried him and sent him to imprisonment. The other impostor was working his way near the temple of Bhubaneswar in a small village not even a mile from the Jagannath road. He was also being worshipped as an incarnation of Mahavishnu. Females from the surrounding villages came to worship him in the dead of night, and he declared his Mahaprasad as sacred as that of Jagannath. He continued in this way till some of the aggrieved Brahmins of Bhubaneswar came to him and asked him the authority under which he was thus acting. He plainly declared to them that the authority of the British government was about to cease, and Adul Bahara of Kurda was to be the ruler of Orissa. All those who would oppose his practice were to suffer in a short time from his divine wrath. This terrified those who came to inquire, but the matter was communicated to the authorities by one of them. Babur Kedarnath, the deputy magistrate, was deputed to inquire and submit a report. It was through the exertion of that officer that the impostor was brought to trial and punished. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur again. It was rumored that a large number of impostors of this class rose simultaneously in several parts of Orissa. But when they heard of the trials of the two alluded to above, they got afraid and kept silent. You see, when you are not a coward and you put down one of the cheater, the other who are cowards by nature are going to be subdued. That's why we have to stand up to all of the deviations that is happening in our movement. If we can get one down properly and expose him, others are going to start to get scared, Such is the character of the Atibaris, how horrible they are. We would advise the Kutak editors to expose these characters and try to correct them. If they want to be patriotic, they ought to save their motherland from the hands of the Atibaris and Aluks. With all the attempts for improvement, Orissa will never rise till these wicked and designing members of the Atibari class are converted into honest citizens. The end. So wow, what a chapter, that Bisak is saying. So the very, very powerful materialist yogi, chastised by the pure devotee Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Who else but Bhaktivinoda Thakur could have dealt with this guy? Who else? No one. So just like, paritranaya sadhunam vinashya chadushkritam. So similarly, sometimes Krishna empowers his pure devotee to do this business for him. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, vinashya chadushkritam. Unless Bhaktivinoda Thakur would have been there, this man would have grown more and more powerful. Nobody could have... You see, when he manifested fire from his hair and his eyes, the police officer was scared. They would not have dared arrest the guy. It's just because Bhaktivinoda Thakur stood in front of him and I'm not scared of you, You're an offender of the loose feet of the Lord. That then the police constables, they gathered some strength and courage. Except for him, how could they have done? Okay, now it's 8:24. We are at page 81. Let's see this. Okay, I think we can go one more chapter. At least. Vaishnava studies and two Mahatmas. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur made great strides in his studies at Puri. He describes them in his autobiography. I appointed Gopinath Pandita as my tutor, and with his assistance I first studied the 12 cantos of the Bhagavatam with Sridhar Swami's commentaries. Two other Panditas named Harihara Das and Markandeya Mahapatra, who had studied Nyaya, logic, and Vedanta at Navadvip and Benares, studied with him. Being a little weak in grammar, which he had originally studied with Ishvara Chandra Vidyasagara and Vijendranath Tagore in Calcutta, he resumed his studies and gradually learned to compose in Sanskrit. Now, you see how he's such a scholar that he wants to continue to improve. By that time, he's 35 years old. You see, and he's still thinking, I'm going to improve, I'm going to sharpen my Sanskrit and so on. Very high grade caliber, personality, scholar. So he resumed his studies and gradually learned to compose in Sanskrit. After finishing the Bhagavata, I made a copy of the Shat Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Gosvāmī and read it. Then I copied and read the Vedanta commentary, Govinda Bhashya, written by Baladev Vidyabhushana. Next, I read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami. Then I made a copy of the Hari Bhakti Kalpalatika. The latter work was an unsigned manuscript found by the Thakura, which he was much impressed by. It was later published by him and thereafter by his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The Thakura also studied Prameya Ratnavali and other Gaudiya Vaishnava classics, which he was able to secure from the library of the Raja in Puri and from the homes of Vaishnava Panditas. His study and worship were intense, and he quickly became well versed in the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. He composed a book in Sanskrit called Datta Kaustuba in 1874. 104 verses on Vaishnava philosophy with commentary, and he began composing the shlokas of Krishna Samhita, one of his best known works. While living in Puri, the Thakura formed a society of devotees called the Bhagavat Samsat, which held meetings in the Jagannath Vallabha gardens for the purpose of discussing topics of Krishna. These gardens were the former bhajana site of Ramananda Rai, the great follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Many Vaishnavas and Panditas attended the discourses, but one saintly devotee named Raghunath Das Babaji refused to join due to a misunderstanding about the society's function, and because the Thakura was not wearing the traditional Vaishnava tilak and tulasi neck beads. Oh, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was still not wearing tilak and tulasi neck beads. Just see. That's why you can never judge an acharya. He even requested other Vaishnavas not to attend the meeting, for he did not consider the Thakura to be a real devotee. The Thakura's biographer, Paramananda Vidyaratna, and others recount the details of this incident. After criticizing the Thakura, the Babaji became afflicted with a severe illness. One night in a dream, Lord Jagannath appeared to him and told him to pray for the mercy of Thakur Bhaktivinoda if he wanted release from certain death. In the Gaura Parshada Charitavali by Hari Kripadas, a work containing biographical sketches of many great Vaishnavas, it is mentioned that upon awakening, the Babaji quickly approached the Thakura's residence and fell at his feet begging forgiveness for his offense. He spoke humbly to the Thakura saying, "I noticed that you never wore tulasi beads on your neck, nor tilak on your forehead, and because of this I disrespected you and have committed an offense. Please forgive me." The Thakura replied, "Babaji Mahashaya, what is my crime? The Vaishnava tilak and tulasi neck beads are given by the Diksha Guru, but so far Mahaprabhu has not sent me a Diksha Guru. I therefore just chant the holy name on tulasi beads. In this situation, would it be good to whimsically wear tilak or neck beads?" Also, you can see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur understands the formalities and Vaishnava etiquettes, which we're obviously not following now. Of course, now we learn through Prabhupada, but all bhaktas wear at least 1 round or 2 rounds of tulasi, and they wear the tilak also. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur taught, I'm not initiated yet, so I'm not going to wear. The Thakura recounts, Babaji Mahashaya was a Siddha Purusha, a perfected soul. Therefore he could understand everything. He praised me and showed mercy to me, and I became his follower. Babaji Mahashaya, who is he? So that means the person who came and surrendered to him, that is him. But one saintly devotee named Raghunath Das Babaji. Yeah. So, this man who criticized Thakur, Jagannath came in his dream. Of course, for Jagannath to come also and tell him you're going to surrender. And then Thakur said this Babaji Mahasaya was his Siddha Purusha, perfected soul, therefore he could understand everything. He praised me and showed mercy to me, and I became his follower. The Thakura arranged some medicines to help cure the Babaji and completely forgave him for any offense. From that time on, Raghunath Das Babaji had nothing but praise for the Thakura's Vaishnava qualities. On the way to the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur near the Tutta Gopinath temple was the Bhajan Kutir, cottage or hut where one worships the holy name by constant chanting, of Sanatan Gosvāmī. Some great renunciates regularly met there to chant the holy name. An especially great soul in that gathering who later associated with Gaura Kishore Das Babaji was known as Svarup Das Babaji. So now we're coming to Gaura Kishore. Not yet, but Svarup Das Babaji. who would later associate with Gorakishore Das Babaji. The Thakura recognized him as a Paramahamsa and often visited him and sought his association. Also, Swarup Das Babaji is a Paramahamsa. He describes the activities of this saintly person in the following way. All day he would perform bhajan within his small cottage, and in the evening he would come outside and pay his prostrated obeisances to the holy Tulsi tree. Then he would loudly chant the holy name and sing, dance and cry in ecstasy. At this time many Vaishnavas would come to get his darshan audience. Some of them would offer him small handfuls of Jagannath Prasad in order to satisfy his hunger. He would consent to accept it, but he would not accept much. At this time, one of the Vaishnavas would read from Chaitanya Bhagavata or other Gaudiya Vaishnava literatures, and he would listen. By 10 p.m., he would go into his kutira and again start his bhajan. In the middle of the night, he would go to the shore of the ocean alone, wash his face, and take a complete bath. He did this for fear that some Vaishnava would perform some service for him without his knowledge, since he was blind in both eyes. Oh. The question arises, how could he go to the ocean in the middle of the night to take his bath? Only Mahaprabhu knows. There was no doubt that he was a Siddha Purusha, a spiritually perfected soul. He did not have a single material desire. In the evening, I would sometimes go to take darshan of his lotus feet. He would talk with the people and his speech was very sweet. He instructed me, Krishna Nama Bhule Bina, never forget the name of Krishna. The Thakur further comments on the spirit of his life in his autobiography. While in Puri, I made much advancement in devotional service. I became more detached from worldly life, any idea I might have had. That worldly progress produces anything of lasting value was gone forever. Almost every evening I would go to the temple to see the Lord, to hear and chant the holy name and associate with the devotees. On one side of the temple was the Mukti Mandap. The Brahmanas would sit there and give some instructions, but all of them were Mayavadis and personalists. When I would pass them, my mind would become disturbed because of the blasphemy they promulgated. Therefore, I would sit near the goddess Lakshmi Mandira or the Mahaprabhu Pada Padma. When I was sitting there, many of the Panditas from the Mukti Mandap would come and sit with me. This place is in a sub-temple within the walls of the Jagannath Mandira, and it contains the divine footprints of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Many of the Mayavadis became devout Vaishnavas by receiving the association of Bhaktivinoda Thakur at what came to be known as the Bhakti Mandap, where he lectured on the Srimad Bhagavatam. One day, while Thakur Bhaktivinoda and the Vaishnavas were sitting in the Bhakti Mandap reading Srimad Bhagavatam, the Raj of Puri, along with about 50 of his attendants, burst noisily into the meeting. The Thakur was unable to tolerate the king's disrespectful behavior towards the Vaishnavas and the Bhagavatam. The biographer Sundarananda Vidyavinod mentions in his Shikshetra that the Thakur addressed the king as follows. You have the right to hold a position of kingship over your small kingdom, but the Supreme Lord, Jagannath Purushottama, is the king of all kings. Therefore, it is mandatory that you show respect to his Bhakti Mandap, where his glories are daily sung. Realizing he had behaved badly, the king of Puri bowed down to the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the assembled Vaishnavas and begged them to forgive his offenses. At various holy places celebrated by Gaudiya Vaishnavas, specifically the Tota Gopinath temple, the Samadhi of Shri Haridas Thakur, the Siddha Bakula tree, and the Gambhira, the private apartment of Shri Chaitanya, the Thakur spent long hours absorbed in discussing the pastimes of Krishna and chanting the holy name. He devoted much time to discussion of the scriptures, and he prepared notes on the Vedanta Sutra later used by Shyamalal Gosvāmī, who published the notes in his edition of the Vedanta Sutra with the commentary of Baladev Vidyabhushana, Govinda Bhashya. So Shyamalal Gosvāmī published also a version of Vedanta Sutra, not only with the notes of Baladevi Vibhushana, but also the notes of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The Thakura recalls his stay in Puri with happiness. Just as the Jagannath temple is very lofty and beautiful, so also the service to the deity was wonderful. To see it was charming to the mind. Daily from 500 to 700 people were present to see the routine festivals like the evening aarti, etc. What bliss! Many kinds of pilgrims came from all over India to attend the religious festivals. Seeing that, one's eyes are soothed. O Lalu, his son, Lalit Prasad, when you behold all these pastimes with a pure heart, only then can these events be understood. There were many celebrations like Dola Yatra, Ratha Yatra, etc., taking many constables. I made such great exertions to oversee the pilgrims. How can I write of it all? Because, mind you, he was taking care of the Jagannath temple. So every festival and all he had to arrange, he had to make sure that everything was in order. I would make favorable arrangements for the pilgrims to see the deity and take prasad, and I would hear the people's complaints. I spent my time in Puri in great happiness, seeing the festivals, acquiring knowledge and devotion. Purushottama Kshetra is directly Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. What doubt is there? In 1874, Bimal Prasad, the fourth son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, took his birth, and the Thakura mentions that all of the auspicious ceremonies such Anna Prasad, first eating of grains, were performed with Jagannath Prasad. Later, this son, as has been documented in Array of Vishnu, Volume 1 of this series, Lives of the Vaishnava Acharyas, would come to be known as Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada, the founder of the Gaudiya Math and spiritual master of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So that's the birth of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, 1874. By that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is about 36 years old or so. So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur is born like that. Okay, so we are page 85, Royal Conspiracy. Okay, this is a short one. We can do this one also. Royal Conspiracy. Lalita Prasad Thakur recounts in his biographical notes that an attempt was made on the life of Thakur Bhaktivinoda by the Raj of Puri. That same Raj who came into the compound of Jagannath Puri temple with his 50-something soldiers. Bhaktivinoda Thakur chastised him. Now seems like he's trying to get back at him. In 1874, 80,000 rupees were misappropriated from the Jagannath temple by the Raj. Thakur Bhaktivinoda learned of this and punished the king by obliging him to offer Lord Jagannath Naivedya, cooked food, 52 times per day. The Raja's treasury was soon depleted, and in anger he decided to avenge himself by assassinating the Thakura. The Thakura's position, by this time, he had been promoted and given the full powers of a magistrate with specific responsibility for the Jagannath temple, was very strong, and he was popular and famous in the district. Thus, as he would have immediately been arrested, the Raja could not risk killing him by ordinary means. The king therefore organized a secret fire sacrifice in the inner apartments of the palace with 50 panditas in attendance chanting mantras, with the intention of killing the Thakura by mystic influence. He thought by hiring some brahmanas within the compound of the Jagannath temple, by doing a yajna, he can kill the pure devotee of Lord Jagannath. Although all of this was conducted with the utmost secrecy, still information of the king's activities was daily passed to the Thakura by informants. After 30 days of yajna, sacrifice, when the last oblation of clarified butter was being poured on the fire, Thakura Bhaktivinoda was to have died. Instead, at that very moment, the Raja's dear and only son perished within the palace. Just see. In the recalling this period in his autobiography, the Thakura mentions it indirectly. The king and other persons connected with the temple used to commit many illegal acts. I would go there to prevent all such things, and thus I made enemies of the king and the king's men. Because I was held by Lord Jagannath, no one was able to harm me in any way. After 5 years of service, the Thakur left Jagannath Puri to settle urgent family business, and he was subsequently posted at different places in Bengal, where he visited various holy pilgrimage sites. During this time, his fifth son, Varat Prasad, took birth in Ranaghat. Oh, I always thought that Bhaktisiddhanta was the youngest. Somehow I misremembered. The Thakura went to Calcutta, and there he met his old friend, Mr. Haley, who was at that time the Inspector General of Jails. Mr. Haley was very sick and weak, but was very affectionate to the Thakura, and he asked him many questions. Thereafter, a king of tug-of-war took place between different government officials as to where the Thakura would be posted, and with the help of Mr. Haley, the Thakura was appointed to Araria. There the Thakura became ill with an urinary disease, and he took 2 months sick leave. His condition gradually improved. In November of 1877, about 39 years old, he transferred to Mahibareka, near Calcutta, where there were serious problems with police corruption. As usual, he took every opportunity to visit the holy places in the region. He was again transferred, this time to Bhadrak, was promoted to deputy magistrate there, and continued his duties. While he was resident in Bhadrak, Mr. Robbins wrote him a very affectionate letter from Orissa, practically begging him to return to Puri. On July 11, 1878, the government issued the Thakura's summary power, and in August transferred him to Narail. In Narail, there was a good deal of service for the Thakura, and he became very popular with the townsfolk. Again, he took every opportunity to tour the region, and he was met with great affection by all the people, who would serenade him with the holy name when he arrived in their villages. It is said that the pure devotee's mere presence makes everyone chant the holy name of the Lord. In Narail, the Thakura had severe fevers on a number of occasions, so he began exclusively drinking green coconut milk instead of water. Yeah, I've heard of that, that this is actually, it's called, how do you call that? When you cleanse the body completely, you know? I forgot what's the name somehow. You just drink coconut water, and it completely clears the whole body of all toxins and all. He quickly regained his health. Okay, so we're going to be stopping here, even though this is also a short chapter. 8:45, we're only 1 hour 42 minutes in, but somehow, yeah. So, okay, let's see some of the comments. Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna to Jani Prabhu, Hare Krishna to Manu Prabhu. Thank you very much for joining the session. Mataji, Anandini Mataji says Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the Gopi Kamala Manjari originally. Yes, I believe this is revealed in by the Acharyas. This verse from Amiyati Dinamati song. So what is this, 15? So Dame Uttamamani Mudha Binya Abhima Nidushtahana Shishta Abhiman. So maybe, which verse is that? Maybe in his composition. Yeah, so, okay, so thank you very much for having joined today's session. This is the third session in a row, I mean the third day. Today I'm a bit tired. What was the name of his essay about Lord Jesus, Prabhuji? Yeah, so it's called essay called To Love God, published in a journal of Tajpur on August 25th, 1871. So I'm putting it here. This is the name of the essay, To Love God. So I think if you type that, To Love God, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, somehow maybe Love God essay. Yeah, I would recommend you to go and see this website, Bhakti, sorry, I'm gonna share it at Bhakti Vinod Institute. I'm sharing the link here. It's a very nice website. They've done a very good job for it's focused on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings, so maybe you can find it there. Try to do some search there. If you do find it, please send me a message, private message. I'd like to study it also. So so today I gave a Bhagavatam class for the Chinese Yatra. I'm giving Bhagavatam classes every day in the morning, about 1 hour a day. And then I gave the kids class in the afternoon, which is also about 1 hour. And now this 2 hours, so I'm not going to continue beyond 2 hours today. So thank you very much. I will try again to see if tomorrow evening we can continue with the 4th session. Thank you for those of you who are joining. Hare Krishna, Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo. Anantakoti Vaishnavanda ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Nitai Go Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you.